What's going on, everybody? Shadow Man here, and I am coming at you with a video today because I want to start a series discussing past formats in Yu-Gi-Oh! I love Time Wizard format, and I know there was a lot of stuff going on with Time Wizard a few weeks ago, and I wanted to start this project a few weeks ago, but sure enough, Konami has to go and throw everything into chaos with all these changes that they're doing, and throwing Time Wizard and Time travel and time rules. I didn't want to start the videos as soon as while that was going on, so I decided to wait till that all calmed down so I could start releasing. That being said, so the subject matter of these videos, and these are just going to be off the cuff videos where I'm just explaining my takes, my hot take on something, and that's really it. This is a series of videos that I want to introduce cards that I feel like fit in the past formats, right? I would love to see new cards added to past formats. However, I know that that's a tall order to put together. So I feel like it needs to be a select list of cards that the community just agrees upon, you know, and then that's a list that's put off to the side, and then people can say we're using the extended list. We're not using the extended list. And that's that. It simplifies it. The extended list doesn't have to be a long list. It just has to be a lot of cards that kind of like balance the game out a little bit more in the format to some degree. It would mostly be cards, with the exception of this one so far, um, that gear towards boosting the decks that could have been, is the best way to put it. Um, I'm putting this all together because I do remember lots of conversations I've had and lots of discussions I've had with friends in my area about decks they would like to see better in the Edison format, but are just not. You know, and people like to say that there's a lot of decks in Edison format, but and there are. But let's just really break it down. Like Edison format deck list. This is on EdisonFormat.net. This is pretty much the resource for Edison, and they have a list of competitive decks. These are their starter decks. Like if you go to New Edison and you click on starter decks, these are the decks that they consider starter decks. And they even categorize it. These decks perform consistently well at tournaments and are highly represented. 5 decks. There's only 5 in this list. And then these decks see less representation in prestigious tournaments but can still perform at the highest level of play. These decks, there's only 6 of those. So really, on the competitive level, according to Edison deck list, there are 11 decks. And that's not bad. That's a decent format. But people still complain. They get tired of seeing Blackwing. They still get tired of seeing... Oh, and that's another note, too. There are 11 decks here, but 3 are just Blackwing decks. So, if we were to combine this as one, there's only 1, 2... There's 11 minus 3. I can't do math in my head. There's 8. 8 decks. Right? So, there's that. And then you have Hero Frog and Diva Hero, which both use Hero. So I would count this as as one deck. But then Hero Frog and Junk Frog are essentially similarly, they use similar cards. So this would be one deck. So you really have 6. Oh, and then there's Diva Hero, so 5. All right? There's 5 decks. So yeah, people like to say that there's competitive decks and there's lots, but all it really is 5 main flavors where the ingredients slightly change. So this gives the impression, this list might give the impression of a diverse format, but is it really diverse when the cards that are being used are fairly similar across the 11 decks? The standout decks are Lightsworn and Machina and Diva Zombie. These are 3 decks that I would say are different enough from the rest of these, maybe Dragon Turbo, that are set aside to the rest of the format. So that's my argument there. That like people like to say that the format is diverse, but is it really? All right. If you go down, there are some other decks, these rogue decks, but look how many are here. You know, there's 10, 20, like this is like 5 and 5. Yeah, 10, 20. There's 20 decks that are considered rogue. They're considered playable. They consider that you could probably win with them, but your chances are a lot lower, you know? And then there are casual decks. There are so many casual decks that look like they'd be a lot of fun to play, but good luck getting into a tournament with them. You're just going to get destroyed. Especially cards like decks like X-Sabers that have potential, but don't work because of the fact that they're just missing cards. You know, Samurais are just missing cards. That came out 2 sets later, but because those sets also have Gravekeepers that came out with Gravekeeper Recruiter, that card warps the format and it just destroys it, and you're basically playing a brand new format anyway. So I am an advocate that we can probably make a list of maybe 50 cards that can add to this format to make these decks a little bit more viable. We don't have to add anything up here. We don't. You know, the most we're going to do in this list is like 10 cards that are everyman decks. Like specific, like this one. I'll get into this in a second. But for the most part, I'm going to be focusing down here on cards that I could add to the format that make these decks better so that they could play at this level. You know? And that's it. That's all I'm going to be looking for, because I'm going to use this list as the resource, and that's what I'm going to make the videos on. Maybe those cards will help these decks out. Maybe I'll find a card that, like, okay, this card definitely needs to be in, even though it's on a rogue deck level. Maybe 1 or 2. But I'm not going to try to touch this section, and I'm definitely not going to touch this section. I'm going to be looking at cards that really focus here, and cards that are catch-alls to kind of keep the balance there for all decks. One card in particular that starts that is this card, Allvain, the Essence of Vanity. We already have Instant Fusion in the format, and this card I feel like would be a great fit for the format. This card is a tuner, and it's level 2. It has 0 attack. It uses only normal monsters if you're trying to fusion summon it, so that means if you want to go down that strategy, you have to put normal monsters in your deck. The only decks that really can use that right now are Ojamas and Heroes. Heroes being the better of the two, obviously. But Heroes don't typically use synchro monsters. They use fusion monsters. So I feel like this creates a situation where you could make a hero deck that could synchro to some degree. That would be kind of fun to see in the Edison format. Something new, something fresh. This card could do that. This card also, because Instant Fusion is in the format, allows all decks to have now easy access to a tuner. Why do I say a tuner? Because I believe that if this list is to be a thing, they should only be max 1 copy per deck. Max 1 copy per deck. I don't care what card it is. It should only be 1, because these are cards being added in to allow for easier deck building, diversify the format even more, and just make things a little bit more fun and less stale, so that people are not always running into 5 different versions of a Blackwing deck. Okay? So cards like this, I think, are great. Allvain, the Essence of Vanity, could also be added to decks that are not even on this list that I would like to see. I experimented with trying to put together an Amazoness deck in this format, and it works on the casual level to some degree. Unfortunately, in order for them to be at least rogue, they need Queen. They need the stuff from Duelist Rev, D-Rev. They just need their cards from D-Rev, and if they were at 1 copy apiece, sure, I think that would be fine. But dinosaurs. There's a lot of people I know in my area that would love to see a competitive dinosaur deck, and all the ingredients are there. It's just that dinosaurs just always tend to be a beatdown rush deck that just always doesn't. It falls short of even what these casual decks are. Just slightly. It has everything it needs, and you have Tyranno Infinity that can do massive damage when dinosaurs are removed from the game. But it's just getting there. and getting that and putting protection on the board. Dinosaurs just have no protection whatsoever. And I feel like if they had access to some synchro monsters, a little bit easier access, they could get that. And this card allows them to do that just for the fact that it's a tuner at level 2. Now, why specifically this one and not a card, let's say, like Theseus, the level 5 version of what this card is? I feel like level 5 is too easy access to level 8 monsters for synchros. Like, if you had a tuner that's level 5 that you can just easily get to, you can get into Stardust Dragon too easily. And I think that breaks the format. However, this card, being level 2, means that there's extra steps involved. Doesn't mean you have access to those monsters. Yes, it does, because that's what I want. But because now you have to go through extra steps to get to those level 2s, you have to probably go into another synchro monster, give up your level 5 synchro to go into a level 8, or to a level 7 for Black Rose Dragon, things like that. I think it should be okay, because those extra steps are involved. Any single time you have to worry about adding a card in, you have to worry about how easy it is to use that card, and I think that's the key to finding a balanced list to add and make these past formats a little more fun to play. Now, going back to creating a list, if people are trying to make their own, my takes on that are that the cards need to have minimal effects, and they can't break top decks. So, like, if you're going to try to add a card, ask yourself this question: does it make these decks too powerful? You know, I would argue this card doesn't make these decks too powerful. It does give them access to another tool, because it isn't a card that can work in any deck. But that also requires these decks to add Instant Fusion, which none of these decks run, for the most part. I think Diva Hero might run it, but nobody really runs Instant Fusion. None of these decks run Instant Fusion. So it makes Instant Fusion more viable for other decks, for these rogue decks, and it gives these casual decks, or I said rogue decks, it makes it more viable for these casual decks, and it gives these casual decks a tuner they can access a lot easier. A lot of these decks just don't. Aliens have maybe one tuner. Anti-meta, none. Assault Mode has a few, but you have to run specific ones that just don't fit in the format. Black Salvo is a tuner himself, but it's a glass cannon. Batteryman, no tuners. Bushi, not really any. You have to run up weird warrior ones, because you have to keep them warrior. Cloudian, no tuners. Karadius, no tuners. Crystal Beast, definitely no tuners. Dark Gaia, I think runs one. I think it runs Plague Spreader Zombie. And you can put Plague Spreader Zombie in these decks as well. You could. I mean, that's probably what people tend to do, is put Plague Spreader. But that's the only tuner they have. These decks get everything. Vayu has tuners up the wazoo. Blackwings have tuners up the wazoo. Diva relies on their fusion, so they don't really need to have tuners. Dragon Turbo can literally just add any dragon tuners and make it work somehow. Zombies have Plague Spreader. Like Machina has they don't need tuners, because their big boss monster just literally lives in the graveyard. Junk Frog can get tuners that are aqua that work. I think I have to look into that and see if what was available at the time. But a lot of these are fusion based or synchro based that are just mainly focused around Blackwing. This is a fusion deck. This is a fusion deck. This is a fusion deck. Fusion. Synchros. Alright? This has tuners to some degree, I think. But they don't even need it, because they rely on Judgment Dragon. So, all the synchro decks tend to just be this. So my whole crux on this argument is that these decks, in order for these decks to be better, they just have to have better access to the synchro tuners, or the synchro monsters, and a card like this would be a great way to do that. So, that's my rambling, guys. I just want to throw those ideas out there. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more like this, I will be posting one of these possibly a week, maybe 2 a week, if I have the time. It's an easy way for me to put some videos out there, and if you enjoy them, great. Put a like and subscribe down at the bottom. Put your comments in. I know I'll get some flack here and there for my thoughts, and people might throw their ideas as to why it won't be, and I want to hear that stuff so that I can actually come up with a more definitive list. But as of right now, this is a card I see being nice and viable. Next week I want to talk about some trap cards that I saw that I think would be great to add. I think the list honestly would be mainly cards like this and trap cards which are slow. But still add a little bit of viability to decks. I don't think a lot of spell cards need to be added. I don't think a lot of new monsters, main deck monsters, need to be added. I think it's just things that could work as a tool are what we should be looking for. So if this is something that resonates with you, like I said, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll come out with more. After I release 10 of these, I'll make a list, a paper list, or a list on screen of the 10 cards I've already talked about, and then we'll continue from there. Alright, thanks guys, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and see you soon. Bye-bye for now.